Hello and welcome. My name is Mahnoor and I'm a second year DPhil student at Oxford University. Today, I want to talk about all the rejections that I got. So, I was rejected from a number of different universities before I finally got into Oxford. So, today I just want to talk about the long list of rejections, why I still kept going, and then how I finally landed into Oxford. So the thing is that before I applied at Oxford, because like a lot of other people, I never believed I could get here. I always loved the idea of getting here and this particular lab where I'm working, but at the back of my mind, I always thought it wouldn't be possible, and why would Oxford accept me, a person coming from an underdeveloped country with almost no lab experience? How would I get in for a PhD at Oxford? So that was kind of the dream, but seemed unattainable at that point. So before I applied to Oxford, I applied to a dozen other places and got rejected. Some of the rejections that I do remember are from the Max Planck Institute, Germany, and I did not apply for just one program at Max Planck. I applied at 5 different projects, including virology, immunology, and a project even in cellular biology, and I was rejected from all 5 of them. Then I applied at the University of Heidelberg. I was rejected. I applied for a kind of a job position, like a research assistant position, which would then lead to a PhD also somewhere in Germany, and I was rejected. I then applied to the University of Zurich in Switzerland. I was rejected again. Then I applied at ETH Zurich, and again I was rejected. I also applied at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark, and I was rejected from the project I applied for, but I was offered another project which I did not take up because that project was on bacterial cultivations and stuff about E. coli, and I wasn't really interested in studying bacteria. Although my background was in complete microbiology, but my major interest was studying viruses. I thought I would never be happy if I do a PhD concerning bacteria. I honestly couldn't be bothered doing it. So, like, they offered me an alternate project and I did not take that up. So, I would count that as a rejection because I did not get in for the project that I applied to. Similarly, I kept applying. So it wasn't like I applied and then I kept waiting for a reply. I kept applying to different places at the same time. So I applied to a number of different places in Germany and I was rejected straight away. And I know that the Max Planck Institutes take people with a lot of experience, so I just didn't take it upon myself. But in any case, it was a rejection. And then I also applied at the University of Melbourne because I had this desire since early childhood, I don't know why, that I wanted to move to Australia, which couldn't happen, but I'm very happy with where I am now. So I applied at the University of Melbourne at the lab of one particular professor from whom I had done an online course. Like, it was an online course on Coursera. I really liked the course and I thought I would want to go there. So I did apply there. She was very happy to take me in her lab and I did get admission in the university. But the thing is, I didn't get a scholarship. And that professor then told me that she is not happy to take someone who doesn't get a scholarship because otherwise it would get difficult for the student. So all in all, I did get admission and didn't get funding, and since there was no way I could fund it myself, it is, again, University of Melbourne, I think, is 42,000 Australian dollars per year for a PhD, and that is a lot. I couldn't afford that, so there was no way I was going. So that was again sort of a rejection because I didn't get funding. So after all these initial rejections, I did apply to a lot of different places within Europe and also Australia. And then these were like applications where I never heard back what happened. And I would call them rejections, although I wasn't given a reply. But these were applications which were never followed through with. Because for a PhD application, what I was doing was to initially talk to a professor and see if they would be happy to take me in their lab. And there were at least a few dozen professors who never replied. So, although these are not straight away rejections, and it could just be that they do not have a place in their lab at that moment or they do not have the funding, but yeah, it was still the effort going into formulating an email because again, I wasn't just blindly sending the same email or the same application everywhere. I was curating every application, giving it considerable amount of time to make it specific for that particular professor. But even then, even after all the efforts and all the processes, which take a lot of time, and I have talked about all the processes, each individual process of applying in detail in other videos. So I would just say, like, all the time that it takes to curate a motivation letter, an application, talking to a professor, preparing for an interview, and sending a complete application document, I still got rejected from a lot of places. So it was a long list of rejection, and I counted my rejections until 16 straight rejections. I'm not talking about the places where I didn't get a reply from, those were in dozens. But straight away rejections, or where they told me they can't take me or they do not have space in the lab, but I did get a reply. I kept counting them until 16 rejections, and I then gave up on counting. I didn't give up on applying, but I did give up on counting because it gets depressing if you keep getting rejected. So all this process took me about 6 months of straight away rejections. And then why did I not give up? The reason I did not give up was because I did not have anything to fall back onto. My parents weren't rich and jobs in Pakistan weren't so good for my field. I didn't think I would enjoy doing anything other than my field. I was already working as a content writer and earning a great amount, which would have been enough for me to live my life comfortably. But my major goal, my major love of life was studying viruses. If I didn't get that, I knew I wouldn't be happy. So I was kind of thinking about the future. Although you can't predict what you will be doing, but I always thought if I didn't try at least, I was ready for being rejected and not being able to pursue my dream of doing a PhD. But I thought to myself that if I don't try, then I would be really unhappy with myself at some point in the future. I wanted to give it my best shot, apply for every possible place, and then if it doesn't happen, I would have happily accepted it as fate. So that is why I kept going. And also, another thing was if I didn't do a PhD, what else would I be doing? I didn't want to do teaching full time. I could have gotten a teaching job somewhere, but those teaching wouldn't have been really specific to virology. I could have taught microbiology or virology in some university, but it's not widely available in my country. So I did not want to lie back on completely writing or completely giving up on my field. I just wanted to keep trying. So yeah, that is what I told myself, that if you don't try, there is nowhere else. Like, you do not have another option. Although I'm sure if I didn't get here, I would have thought of other options, and I probably would have been working at some industry, very low wage probably, and also probably pursuing the part-time writing because that was online, and I would have lived comfortably. It was a considerable amount of money that I was getting. That is how I funded my MS as well, because I was earning well, alhamdulillah. But I wanted to do a PhD. It was kind of a dream to me that I really wanted to do it. So that is why I never gave up and I kept trying every possible place that I could try. Once I had tried everywhere and seen so many rejections and like completely silent applications, I thought to myself, okay, the fear of being rejected, I think I've already lived that fear because I've already been rejected from so many places. Why not just try at Oxford? And if I'm rejected, I'm rejected. That's all right. I've already been rejected from half the world. So I did try at Oxford and I did write to the supervisor who I work with now. Eventually, I did hear back from him and got an interview, which went well. The rest is just a story of then how I got into Oxford. It is all a dream come true because I was trying everywhere and getting rejected, and I was all the time fearing that I would get rejected from Oxford, so I didn't even apply. Eventually, after 6 months of being rejected everywhere, I then got the courage to apply to Oxford and got here. And that was such a funny week for me. The week I got a positive reply from Oxford was the same week that I then got a positive reply from Imperial College London, from University of Sydney, and all three professors in all three universities wanted me to be in their lab, and there were also funding options available. So then at the end, when it came to interviews and being selected at all three of them, I then chose Oxford. And by the time I already chose Oxford, I was then also accepted at Cambridge. But then it was like I had already selected Oxford and I knew there's a chance of getting funding, so I did not pursue my application with Cambridge because that application was at the initial stage of being accepted, and I didn't want to just waste time of professors as well because they also interview students and give a considerable amount of time into who they are selecting. So I just told them politely that I have, by the time this application has come through, I have already got an admission somewhere else, so I wouldn't be coming here. I also did the same for the professor at the Imperial College and University of Sydney, because I did have to inform them that I'm not going to be in their lab and I've got an admission somewhere else. And all of them were quite happy for me, no harm done, and I informed them well in time so they could select another student. I think all this kept happening because I never gave up. I kept applying. I gave it to myself as a project that I have to keep applying until I get a positive reply. And I gave my heart and soul into it. I kept applying with all the necessities like writing a good email, making it specific to that professor or lab, and writing a good motivation letter, adjusting it to a particular university or lab, and making sure that everything that I send in for a particular admission looks specific to that particular institute, so that it doesn't give any kind of a bad vibe or send across the message that I'm blindly applying everywhere. So I did curate all my emails and all my letters quite carefully, and eventually it did come through for me. So I think what I learned from this would be never giving up. As cliched as it might sound, I think not giving up was the thing that eventually got this for me. Because if I had given up after those initial 16 rejections that I did count, I wouldn't have been here. I wouldn't have had the courage to apply to Oxford or anywhere else for that matter. I did keep applying to other places as well after applying to Oxford until I got the clearance that I have now been selected, because I didn't really believe I could get it. After so many rejections, I thought if all the low ranking universities are rejecting me, why would Oxford, at that time ranked number one, would then select me? And I guess it was just like probably I wasn't a match for the places I was applying to before, or I was more passionate about this particular project that I'm doing and it was meant for me in a way. So in the end, it had to happen and it did happen. But I think a great deal of it just relies on not giving up. So if you are being rejected from a lot of places, keep trying. I cannot emphasize this enough. Keep trying. There will be a lot of rejections. There will be a lot of professors who do not reply. But you wouldn't know where you're going unless you keep trying. I never thought I would be at Oxford, but I found the courage to apply, and I think that was the only thing required. Maybe all those other rejections, in hindsight, if I look at them, maybe all of those were just to prepare me for applying to Oxford. And I learned a lot from all those. I learned probably my own mistakes as well, because I did finally started noticing things that are not getting me reply, or how I should tweak my email further, how I should tweak the subject line, what I should say, how should I prepare for the interview. And I guess it all helped. The entire process of the 6 months of facing rejections helped me finally be extremely prepared for my final and the biggest interview of my life, which was the Oxford interview. I gained the confidence to talk through what I didn't know, what I wanted to know, what I was passionate about. Because in all those readings that I did in the 6 months for applying, I actually gained knowledge from here, there, and everywhere. I didn't know a lot still because it was just sending in applications, but it all helped me prepare for the interview. I knew all the places that didn't take me, and I learned from each of them, not just in terms of applying, but also in terms of my own field, because I explored it, I read papers on it, and it all sort of just came together in the end, taught me a lot, and finally got me where I always wanted to be. So I guess all in all, it's just like never giving up really helps. If you keep trying, if it is a dream to you, I think you should keep trying, because otherwise no one is going to come and hand it over to you. You have to work for it. And once you get there, in hindsight, I don't even remember those 6 months now. Although I do a lot of journaling and I have diaries where I did completely write the entire process, and of course remember the time that it took, but it doesn't feel so bad now. Now that it's done, I've come to a much better place than I was initially hoping for, and it doesn't feel anything. Once you get there, once you achieve a dream, all the hard work just takes a back seat, because it was only to prepare you to get where you wanted to be or where you were meant to be. So I would just encourage everyone to apply. I know when you're getting rejected, it feels demotivating and you feel bad for yourself. You feel like you're not meant for it or something's going wrong. But unless you keep trying, you wouldn't find out what's going wrong or what's meant for you. If you self reject, if you do not even apply, then of course you're not going to get it. So just keep applying. I mean, if I could keep applying after dozens of rejection and get into Oxford, you can get anywhere you want to be, given that you are preparing everything with full zeal and zest. You can get wherever you want to be. On that note, I would take my leave for today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.